And Mark, did you
Okay.
want to say anything? Oh, well. Good morning, everyone. We're a small elite group this morning. This is about the training for step into step 6 promotion training. It's been put together by Mark Lagramini, myself, Wendy, and Kim. For consistency, I'm going to run through the sort of introductory to the training that we've done for the other trainings, but I think I'll try and run through that fairly quickly because I think most of you will be somewhat familiar with it. So, Mark, any opening comments?
No, I'm glad to be back in the game and be able to participate in this training. I want to thank Mark and Kim for doing the bulk of work here, and look forward to giving this training today and hearing your comments back.
Great, thanks. So we do have a quick, when you think about this promotion, I think for many of you, you've gone through the process before, but just how do you feel about the training when you think of this sort of promotion process? Are you chill about it? Not too bad, but a few questions. You're resigned to weeks of stress, or it freaks me out. And even though there's only a few of you, let us know what you think. We did this same survey on the more general promotion, more general merits and promotion training. Was it yesterday, Kim, or the day before?
Day before.
And there was a lot of stress associated with. So yeah, so today we've got totally chill and stressed. So I think that's helpful just to get us oriented. Let's move on and go through it. So what we want to quickly run through is what are the elements of a successful training. We do want to point out that Wendy is offering us what we see as a simpler option for preparing and submitting your package, and then Kim's going to run through some of the critical dates, and we will be giving this training back and forwards. So for this, Wendy did want to join all the trainings, but unfortunately wasn't available. But we do have comments from her in terms of what she's looking for in the process. And Kim, you can sort of go through it fairly quickly, I think, and I'll talk us through it as you're putting it up. So what she wants is she really wants this whole process to be less time consuming, both for the candidate and for the reviewers. But at the same time, while trying to make it sort of simpler and less time consuming, she in no way wants us to compromise the rigor or the high standards. At the same time, she does want to try and minimize and manage disappointment. So set some clear expectations and help people work through that. And then also the annual process, it helps us set the stage for the next review by offering an opportunity for regular and honest constructive feedback, and setting what the expectations in terms of the change. Oh, well, sorry, the expectations do change as the career progresses, and so that becomes part of the conversation. One of the options now is the idea of putting together more what Wendy's referring to as a narrative. It's a well-written story that demonstrates that you know where you're headed. And as you know, particularly for this training, by this stage of your career, you've got some sort of increased focus, and there's a much greater clarity in terms of what you're trying to change, what the outcomes are that you're working towards. Those have been identified, and for going to the step 6, you're actually beginning to see those changes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And obviously, as you're going through this whole increasing focus, it's the result of continued assessment of needs and priorities. I do want to say too, if you have questions as we go along, please just add them to the chat section. And between Mark and Kim and myself, we'll monitor that and get back to you. And then again about your narrative, it's a story that talks about the progress to date for the review period. It's going to highlight the scholarly activities at a very aggregated level. And this is one of the things that Wendy wants to stress. It's this higher level, aggregating what you've been doing, but it's from the perspective of how those activities are making progress towards the intended outcomes, towards the intended changes. And so you'll be talking about the impacts, and you'll draw into your narrative examples of supporting scholarship, the creativity you've shown. You can bring in examples of your professional competence, and it also will show your commitment to both continuous improvement and your commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity. So what is Wendy looking for? She's looking for a story that conveys the trajectory of your path. And again, just stressing at this level, step 6 level, you really are well up there. You're well on your way to impact as you've moved through your career, and you're going to convey that through evidence. It's not just stories, but you've got some evidence to say this shows the changes that have been made. And also, particularly, there's the opportunity for a closing statement, which says, yeah, I've made this impact. Now what's next? Where am I headed next? And the whole point of the narrative is showing that you've got this sustained trajectory, and that's the you're in that part of your career where it's this sustained trajectory. There's a comment here from David. When you refer to review period, can you please make sure whether you are referring to the period in full 5 versus referring to entire period as a full advisor? Kim?
So I can answer that. Yeah. So David, it's for when you promote to full title step 6, you have to report on the entire time you are in or have been in the full title rank. So depending on when you moved into full title 1 or 2, it's from that period on. And so that will be provided for you, but your supervisor should have that as well.
Great, thanks for the question. And thanks, Kim. So again, going through the highlighting in terms of what Wendy's looking for in the narrative, she really wants to see what's your strongest supporting evidence. And don't just, say, go and see the tables, but she wants you to give those examples, and the evidence will be in the tables, but you sort of call it out and refer to it as you go through. And again, just, you've got to have this excellence across all your program. And so you'd be wanting to pull out and say, this is the impact of my work, but also here's how I've excelled in leadership, in teamwork, in service, mentoring, etc. So what she's not looking for, Wendy is not looking for length. She's not looking for a complete list of everything you did. She doesn't want to see activities with no accomplishments. And it is not about completing a checklist. It's not about counting beans. She very much wants you to give you the opportunity. I'm sure you've all had these wonderful successes, and she wants to hear about that and wants to give you the opportunity to really talk about it and say, this is how it's come together. And to put it in perspective from Wendy's point of view, this is what she wrote. It's what does a candidate really want to share that she, Wendy, can read, digest, and synthesize. And she typically reflects on that for about 90 minutes. So you've got that opportunity to put that story together. And the reflection is on the package and the program as a whole. Is this one relevant for?
So it is possible that someone either on this call or who might be looking at the recording is choosing to accelerate this promotion. So yes, it could be relevant.
Okay, so running through it briefly, I think there's been a lot of talk about accelerations, and I think one of the big things is we want to manage people's expectations and minimize disappointment, and really help people understand that an acceleration should be fairly rare. It's once or twice in a career, and it really is about accomplishing a lot more in a shorter period. And it's not just a lot more in like, oh, gee, look at me, I excelled in this area. For example, I excelled in service, but no, you've excelled in all the areas, in your service, your scholarship, your creativity, your competency, in your research and extension program. And we really just, there's been some talk that we've heard that, oh, just give it a try. There's nothing to lose, but really there is, because, what we've seen is when people aren't successful, they're obviously disappointed, and it sort of works negatively against their motivation. So we just really want to help people be successful. Okay.
Okay, so I just want to point out here on the Academic AHR website, it's up there at the top. If you see then too on the left-hand side, you will see the merit promotion process and trainings link. So all of these trainings, if you want to go back and refer to them, they'll be posted there. And then, of course, the PR ebook and dossier examples. The ebook this year has changed as it does every year, but we are back to one ebook as opposed to divided out amongst the various titles. But go to that link and you will be able to find it to see your criteria and for advancement and other specifics.
Great, thanks. And just, we're trying to make it easy for people to find materials. So we also provide links to that material through the Learning and Development site. So if you went to the Learning and Development site, you go there under the Office and Team Management, there is a link to performance evaluation that'll take you to something on that page within Learning and Development. But from there, you can get to the academic, to the HR site, and then we have a few other materials on that page as well. Just trying to make it easy for people to find stuff. And if you're interested in just a summary document of, I went through rather quickly in terms of what Wendy had written, and what we did was we took those points, and I'm about to put it into the chat box, we took those points that Wendy had and summarized them into a single sheet. So I just put the link in the chat of where you can find that summary document. And again, when we've been thinking, when Mark Lagramini, Kim, myself, Wendy, we've been thinking about this whole process, we really want people to be successful, as do they, obviously. And what does success look like? It's about having impact in your program, or at least showing you're on the pathway to clear impact. But associated with that, we want to reduce the amount of stress and time that people feel with this process. And so, next one, please. As we've looked at, well, what does success look like? I mean, first and foremost, it's about designing and implementing an impactful program. What comes after that is the being able to simply and effectively tell your story and your impact story. And that could be like telling your story through blogs or UC Delivers or through your annual evaluation or whatever. But I think what we've seen is sometimes these get back to front, and we've heard people say, well, I'm not sure if I should do that, because can I put it in my merit and promotions? And that seems very backward in terms of, first and foremost, we want people to be successful, and success is about having impact. So focus on that. What can you do to be impactful? And then, we want you to be able to tell your story simply. And I think at this stage of your career, you've all seen this, but we'll just run through it quickly because this is what we're sharing with the newer advisors and so on. What makes a successful? It's a process. What makes for success? It's a process. You start with your needs. Then, not every need has an opportunity. So what is the opportunities that you can respond to? Then if you have an opportunity, well, what is the difference? You might have a whole range of possible opportunities, but which are the ones that can really make a difference? And particularly with your set of skills, what can make the difference? Out of that, you develop your themes and goals, and then you get around to implementing your program. If we get all this right, hopefully then we have this wonderful impact. And just next one. So this whole process, it's about the opportunity to highlight where you are on your journey and how you're progressing towards your goals. And so it really, on the right-hand side, you've set some goals. That's the change you want to make. You've got a starting point. And your package is about telling where you are in that journey. And so that's where the airplane is. Where are you at this point? How far are you along that trajectory to making the change and impact that you want? And obviously at this level, we're pretty certain you're pretty close. You're meant to be close and up in that box of impact and desired change. But also there's always the opportunity to revise your goals and say, well, yes, we've had tremendous impact, but we have to relook at our goals and say, well, what now? And we just put this together to help people see the consistency of the whole process. So you start off, you're saying, why should people care? Well, they care because there's a need. They care because there's an opportunity. There's a difference we want to make. And if we put all those elements together, that helps us identify our themes and goals. How do we achieve our themes and goals? Well, we have objectives and activities. And then there's a simple process that, by this stage of your career, I'm sure you're all well aware of this. It's like, if we do this set of activities, then we achieve these objectives. If we achieve those objectives, yes, we've made the contribution to the goals and themes. and very briefly there, just I think you all know goals is not something you fully achieve, it's something you contribute to. But then we've contributed to these broad goals, and if we've contributed in the right way, then yes, we've got the impact, we make impact, and then that leads us back to, well, what was that difference we were wanting to make? So it all ties together in a very simple, logical way.
Great. I want to just go back to the ebook real quick. Again, there's the Academic AHR website, the left-hand side where it says PR, ebook, and dossier examples. And then in the blue box, which actually I think I might have changed to gold because somebody was saying they were having a hard time with the blue, but you will see the link that says the 2020 guidelines for preparing your thematic program review dossier, and that is the ebook for everyone. Remember that the ebook provides guidelines. It does reference policy, but it is also intended to give you flexibility in developing your story, your narrative that reflects on your success to date and your trajectory. And then we want to make sure that you remember to highlight your relevant evidence, your scholarly impacts, and your evidence of impact. This new narrative example is new, and we're finalizing an example to put on the AHR website as well. But some of you might be able to see in the middle there, some of the supporting documents, the competency service. Those are all the tables that you're familiar with. These are now the supporting documents for your packet, and we'll have more on that in just a few minutes.
And the elements of the narrative are actually included in the ebook, yeah. I think they're on page. Yeah. And one other thing that Wendy really stressed on that is that, it's not a rule book. As Kim pointed out, it's guidelines, there's flexibility, it's not about following a set of rules. It's about telling your story in a compelling way. So just what's elements of your dossier, things that you should have. I mean, you've all got position descriptions, updated as needed. There's a cover page that's laid out in the ebook, very simple. Then you have your program summary narrative. Again, there's sort of examples of how to lay that out or within the ebook. And then you should still have some supporting documents, and Kim will talk a little bit more about that. But there's also flexibility then on how you draw on that in your narrative. And then also if there's some things that might be applicable, sabbatical leave, a work plan, or performance improvement plan. And then, the whole program's meant to be increasingly based on clarity of goals. So you will have your goals somewhere in there, and it's put down there as optional, but your goals will be sort of built into your narrative.
So I just wanted to reiterate and clarify that, Mark, since this group has been putting through merit promotion packages for a while now.
Yes.
Goals were required in all of the past uploads that you have done, but they are considered optional now moving forward for a merit and promotion. They are still required as part of an AE upload, but again, optional for the merit and promotion.
And the goals are actually built into your narrative, so they're going to be included there somehow, and you may even want to include them for clarity as an appendix or something.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, I had a bit of, because this particular aspect is very new to me. I wasn't clear. I went into the ebook and I looked at, well, what's different to help you guys understand between 5 and 6 and so on. And I went into the ebook and it wasn't super clear to me. So I went to Wendy and I said, Wendy, how would you describe what's required for a step 6? So this takes a summary of what she said. You've got to demonstrate significant contributions and continuous professional growth in all of your areas, and that's over your career in the full title rank. So she gives there's some examples there. Demonstrate expertise in at least one aspect of program area, sustained excellence in program delivery, and the point here is contribute to discipline at the local, state, and national level. Showing leadership at state and multi-state levels, and there will be publications with significance beyond the local level. And included this quote from Wendy because I think it sort of captures. She's saying it's an exceptionally high bar with clearly demonstrated impact in all areas. And then Kim, there's that takes them to what in the ebook?
Page 36 of the ebook is just greater detail on the Step 6 promotion.
Great, thanks.
So just a reminder for all of you, for position descriptions, you all have them, I know, but it is now a good time to be reviewing them, see if there's anything that needs to be updated. Please don't wait till January or the middle of January to do that, because we get flooded, and between myself and Mark, we may not be able to get to them all. So take a look at them now. If you do need an addendum, for instance, if you had an interim county director appointment, there is a sample and a template on the AHR website under academic position descriptions, or you can just send me an email, give me a call, and I can help you with that as well. Please remember that the peer review committee uses your position description to understand as much as they can the specifics of your program. So your PD really does need to be updated. If you're not working in a certain commodity anymore, but it still shows up in your PD, they're going to have questions about that.
Great. And just running, because the narratives is somewhat new, we thought we'd run through fairly briefly what it looks like, or what it could look like. As we said, there's flexibility in it. There is an example in the ebook. You can go to page 18 there within the ebook, and it's really about building your story around your themes and articulating those clearly, focusing on your impacts in relation to your goals and the trajectory you are on. The impact should align with your client's needs. They reference the public values and the condition changes, and throughout you blend into your story key examples, not every example, but key examples that highlight how scholarship and creativity have led to your impact, professional competence, how that has been part of your impact story. And then, as we mentioned before, how your commitment to continuous improvement and diversity, equity, inclusion, how that has contributed to the impact you're making. And you should describe your program relative to the, again, just highlighting it's at this level, it's really about being the tremendous impact you are making. In the earlier parts of a career, it might be, look, this is the road I'm on, and these are the steps in place that will lead to my impact. For this level, it's really about the impact you are making. And then in the past, compared to the past where people have all these tables, again, the documentation must be, what your narrative must be supported. You can't just say, oh, look at all the great stuff I've done. You do want to have some examples captured somehow, so you want to include that in your document somehow, but you can choose different ways to capture that example of your impact. And you can use the traditional table format, or you can use an alternate format, but in that case you can draw on tables or past goals. You might include an enhanced CV to highlight sort of the overall program, or the overall characteristics of what you have in place. So there's different ways you can go about providing the supporting information to support your narrative. Anything else you want to say there, Kim?
No, that's it.
Okay, go ahead.
Just a quick reminder about Project Board, Dan Resec's retrieval and interfolio. So hopefully you all have been continuing to input your activities, clientele, information, et cetera, into Project Board. That is open year-round for you to be doing. There is then the review and compile download through Project Board. When you click on that, it'll give you options of things that you want to include, and then it will push it out to an editable Microsoft Word document that you can then arrange and do what you need to do to make it so it tells your story for upload. Interfolio is the system that we're using for the advancement process. And so I'm sure all of you last year had gotten some sort of email from Interfolio, so you're familiar with it. I'm hoping in the next week or so that we will have the system up and open for the new review period. I have to finish some housekeeping bits to finish off the last year's review, but as soon as it's ready, an Interfolio email will come out. As a reminder, so some of you, as this is a multi-year review, will probably need to go into DownRiskX and get some of your historical information. Go to Data Recap for that. If you have any questions about DownRiskX or Project Board, you can email Chris Hansen or Kit Aldies. And then I will remind everybody that we do have a Project Board training scheduled for Thursday, November 7th. I believe it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, again, you will probably have seen this on the right-hand side of your portal page, where you can find Project Board. And then, I still need to lower that arrow a little bit. In the middle, under ANR Academic Program Review, as soon as the new year is up and running, you'll be able to access Interfolio through that. And then just a quick reminder about the peer review committee perspective. Please remember that you might have people from other programmatic areas who are reviewing your packet. So please make sure it's easily understood. Don't use a whole lot of acronyms, or if you do, please provide some sort of table so people know what you're talking about, because they may not be familiar with you or your specific program. As always, the dossiers are due in Interfolio on February 1st, 2020. If there are confidential letters that are required, Interfolio will provide you the template to submit the names and email information. Please don't put titles, just the name and the email. Titles tends to muck up Interfolio. And then if you are asked to write a confidential letter of evaluation for someone, note that the deadline to submit is March 13th. All supervisors' reviews for these promotions, merits, and AEs are due on March 20th in Interfolio.
And just again to remind people, there's the summary document that sort of talks about the narrative, since it's new, and the link there is in the chat. And then we go to the next one. And so just we can probably, oh.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So I guess we can finish the recording. If people have any questions quickly, we can take that. Plus, I'll put the survey link into the chat. We'd appreciate any feedback on the training. It really is very quick. It probably takes less than a minute to do the survey to provide us some feedback on the training. So any questions? Or Mark, any comments? You're muted, just to remind you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what Mark and Kim have done here. I think everything was presented really well. Is this, this is not your first rodeo for all of you, obviously, and you kind of understand how things work. It's all about telling the impacts you've had throughout your career and telling it through your story, your narrative. And, you know, once you get to this point in your career, you've got your network of collaborators and stakeholders out there, and you've built up a reputation, and you are considered by your peers as an authority. And so your impacts will be greater because of all these things than when you were just starting out. And just get that across in your story, and then provide whatever you need in whatever form you want to be able to support those claims. It could be a video blog, it could be a publication or a particular guideline that you provided farmers or whatever. But thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike. And Oleg had the question, is bibliography for the whole career still required or just for the full title period? And Kim required, it's still required for the whole career. with work in full title rank highlighted. Thanks. And then David, I think you had a question. I think you're muted. Chat or ask, whichever you want.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, thanks on the bibliography, because I had that question too. Since like in my case, that's over 500 publications. We're just getting into logistics of what this thing's going to look like. But narrative length. In the past, there's always been 6 pages, 10 pages, 1 page per year. What are you recommending this year?
In the narrative guidelines to date say 2 to 6.
2 to 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
It really is meant to help, even though that might be difficult. People might say, I could imagine people saying, oh, but I have so much to tell. I think it really, really what it's after. It's like, you got a great story, just wham it in there.
Right. And for a standard merit 2 pages, yeah, easy to accomplish.
Sure.
For a sort of career promotion to 6, I'm thinking most of us are going to be more on the 5 or 6.
Yeah. It was interesting because some of the people from Riverside said no matter what, they get 2. So
yeah,
I thought it was interesting contrast.
Can you hear me?
Is that
another question on?
Oh, sorry. Let's take David's question then. I think, is it Catherine? So, Catherine, if you don't mind, would you?
I was just going to respond that I think that the recommendation was 2 to 6 with a 10-page maximum.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then I had a question in my case where this is an acceleration. And of course, the basis of an acceleration is action over the last 2 years, whereas the majority of this narrative and document is based on time as full title. So how should I, like in my case, should I do a specific acceleration statement for why it should be faster than normal, but then do the whole rest of the process like normal?
I don't know the answer to that. Mark or Kim?
Sure. So, David, the separate acceleration statement is not an element anymore. What is required is writing about your request for an acceleration within your narrative. So it is not a separate document. You just have to build it into your narrative. So you actually might be looking more towards 10 pages then.
Well, yeah, and that's a little more complicated in this case because the whole narrative is based on career, last 10 to 15 years, not so much the period of time that the acceleration. So yeah, I mean, it really does change how the narrative would have to be written, because you basically have to say, why was I awesome for 2 years? And then why was I awesome as a full title advisor? Those really are 2 different topics.
So
they merge, but they're separate.
Doubly awesome.
Well, yeah, so it's just a whole different approach, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. That's it.
Any other Catherine?
I was just going to say that I think that there's a whole different approach to accelerations now, David, and I think it's important to kind of be thoughtful and aware of that in the decision to go up for one.
Yep, I'm aware that our current leadership is more stingy than others in the past, but I've also got a hell of a package that it'd be ridiculous not to put in to ask for one. So that's what I'm going to do.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? We want to respect people's time, but we don't want to cut people off either. Again, the link is in the chat for the evaluation of today's training. So just provide us, like I say, 3 very quick multiple choice and then 1 comment if you want. So it doesn't take very long at all. So any feedback much appreciated.